BMW's 5 Series remains a car that executive sector buyers simply have to factor in before they sign on the dotted line for something like a Mercedes E-Class or an Audi A6. Accountants like its low running costs, while frustrated F1 drivers like its great driving dynamics. The rest of us can just admire it as an expensive but very complete example of the executive art. BMW has never been a company averse to taking a few risks, and when their E65 series range was launched in 2003, it showed. This car's flame surface styling instantly made its two German arch rivals, Audi's A6 and Mercedes E-Class, look very conservative. In fact, so much so that some commentators wondered if the Munich brand hadn't gone a step too far. They were wrong. The 5 Series proved to be a strong seller, and today still looks current and forward-thinking. Now, enhancements in 2007 altered the styling little, but brought us a cleaner, more powerful range of engines and an even higher tech range of optional extras. In most classes of car, the gap between the best and the next best isn't that great. Not so here. For serious drivers, there's only really one choice in this sector, and this is it. Not that this is something you'd appreciate on a drive round the block. On first acquaintance, any of the current crop of full-sized executive cars feels like a good steer. And they feel pretty good on extended use too, until, that is, you compare the experience to an extended spell in a 5 Series. Now, that's when you appreciate how BMW has leaned on its competition heritage, where all those weeks and months of pounding around the Nürburgring have paid dividends. Now, most models are ordered with a 6-speed automatic, and that's a bit of a pity because the standard manual box is actually pretty good. More powerful variants get the option of the automatic sports transmission that I'm trying here with its wheel-mounted paddles. A well-judged ride and a general lack of body roll make this one of those rare executive cars that's at home on a twisting secondary road as it is on a motorway. You should find on routes like this one, very twisting, very bumpy, that this is one of those cars that's very easy to drive well. Something that's aided immeasurably by the clever electric power steering system that's never too light, never too heavy, but enables the least confident driver to position the car accurately through a series of bends and enjoy what's likely to be prodigious reserves of power. I mean, even the mid-range 530D variant that I'm driving here makes 60 from rest in under 7 seconds on the way to a top speed of 155 miles an hour. Now, should you get into trouble, big, impressive brakes and the highly sophisticated DSC Plus stability control system should get you out of it. If money's no object, there's a whole range of optional extras you can invest in to improve the experience still further. A lane departure warning system, for example, gently vibrates the steering wheel if you're changing lanes and about to move out into the path of another car. There's active cruise control to keep you a safe distance from the car in front automatically on the motorway. There's a heads-up display which enables you to simultaneously keep your eyes on the road ahead and on key information like speed or directions. It projects an image onto the inside of the front windscreen. There's a high beamer system that at night monitors oncoming traffic and dips your headlights automatically. There's even thermal imaging, which uses a camera, a night vision system that enables the car to pick up stray animals or pedestrians and warn you in time to take evasive action if need be. The once radical shape of the 5 Series has matured into a discreet but smart design that looks large but never feels bulky. There's decent space up front, though slightly less legroom and luggage space than you get in a comparable Audi or Mercedes, though not enough less for it to be a huge problem. The saloon version offers a 520-litre boot, but I've opted here for the 4.48 metre long touring estate model, which gives you 500 litres behind the 60/40 split folding rear seats and 1,650 litres should you fold those seats flat. This model also gives you a split rear tailgate where the rear glass opens separately for the easy loading of smaller items. If your own experience of this generation model came from an earlier version, then you might have struggled with the needlessly complicated iDrive system, which uses a large knob and a screen to control the important audio, satellite navigation and climate control functions. Now that still remains, but in later models like this one it's been made much simpler to use, thanks mainly to these various favourite buttons that enable you to go straight to your preferred radio station, destination or temperature setting without having to scroll through layers of endless menus. Now, assuming that you haven't got £70,000 to blow on the M5 supercar, you'll probably end up paying between £30,000 and £45,000 for your 5 Series. What's that comparable to? Well, entry-level Audi A6s may seem a bit cheaper, but they're not quite as powerful. And if you compare like with like, you'll find that the Audi and, say, an equivalent Mercedes E-Class cost around the same. Of course, you could pay less and get something not quite as involving but just as luxurious. Models like Lexus's GS, Jaguar's XF and Volvo's S80 all spring to mind. Now, the engine range, as ever with BMW, it's huge and very impressive, much of it substantially modified since launch. If you're after petrol power, it all starts at 190 brake horsepower with a 2.5 litre straight 6 that you find under the bonnet of the entry-level 523i. The next 2 engines up are also straight 6s, but this time 3 litres in size. You've got a 218 brake horsepower unit in the 525i and a 272 brake horsepower unit in the 530i. Now, in the unlikely event that that's not enough, you're looking at V8s. There's a 4-litre V8 in the 540i with 306 brake horsepower and a 5-litre V8 in the 550i with 367 brake horsepower. And that's a unit so fast you may feel that the flagship M5 supercar with its 507 brake horsepower V10 is a touch superfluous. If you're after a diesel engine, there's a wide choice too. This part of the lineup offers the only 4-cylinder option in the form of a 177 brake horsepower 2-litre unit. Otherwise, it's straight 6s all the way, 3 litres in size. You've either got a 197 brake horsepower engine in the 525D, this 235 brake horsepower engine in the 530D that I'm driving here, or a 286 brake horsepower option in the twin-turbo 535D. As you'd expect with such a wide and varied model range, cost of ownership here is really what you make of it. But in general, BMW holds a significant advantage over its rivals in this respect. Opt for something like, say, a 525D and you're buying a car that's knocking on the door of 200 brake horsepower, yet returns around 45 miles to the gallon in regular use. Now, much of this impressive return is down to BMW's excellent efficient dynamics program that includes things like regenerative braking that charges the battery under engine braking. Now that means that the alternator has less to do in everyday use, and that leads to fuel and emission savings of around 7%. What to watch out for? Well, insurance costs are relatively high. The 520D starts at Group 15, but you won't find a petrol engine model under Group 17. It's also worth pointing out that residual values hit the bigger engined petrol variants more than the diesels. Try 39% after 3 years use for a 540i compared to a residual value of 52% for a 535D over the same period. Now, try and avoid the temptation to blow big money on options because that'll skew those figures somewhat. One nice touch is that there's a servicing indicator system built into the onboard computer so that you know exactly when the vehicle's due for service based on how you've been driving. So unnecessary trips to the dealership are unnecessary. Despite its high-tech touches, there's something refreshingly old school about this BMW. Maybe it's its reliance on the classic front-engined rear-drive layout, or maybe it's down to its relentless emphasis on driving enjoyment. Whatever it is, we like it.